welcome back to the Blue Chip Academy podcast, the Blueprints to Success interview series, providing unique blueprints, tactical knowledge, and best practices to navigate the critical points in the football ecosystem so athletes and parents can prepare a plan to a career path that any athlete can bank on. And we got a great episode today, back at it, man, with one of my former roommates. Not too many people can say that they left college as an all-time leading receiver in history at anything, right? Whether D3, D2, but at a Power 5 school, a place like Penn State, let alone starting off as a walk-on DB. You always hear those stories anomaly like, oh, somebody went on to DB and they did this. Our guest passed Bobby Engram to become Penn State's all-time leading receptions leader in November of his senior season against the Indiana Hoosiers, going on to get drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in the third round in the 2009 draft. Since transitioning from the NFL, has gone on to have a successful career in cybersecurity, currently located in Atlanta, killing as network security engineer at Cox Communications. Proud to welcome the GOAT, man, the guy, Deon Butler, man. What's going on?
Man, it's great to be back, man. Like you're saying, it's a great personal thing too, man. Just being, one of the first guys that, stayed with at Penn State. So it's always just a great thing to see us evolving past the game and see us moving in our different lanes, but still doing successful things. And just from watching you, man, from afar and just love what you're doing, man. So glad to be
Man,
here.
respect. I appreciate that, man. It's like the feeling's mutual, man. Always have much respect, man, just on how, man, your game from one point, but obviously as a person, right? As roommates and going through this thing kind of had, like you said, at one point we had different perspectives going in, but at the same time, the mission that we were on was the same. But we always talk about everyone has different journeys through this football ecosystem, elite sports path, and like finding your lane and kind of your true value that you bring to the table and leading into those, you can have success. So like I said, you hear about the anomalies in sports as a former walk-on who made it, but most don't understand like the fortitude, the self-belief, and frankly, just the pure talent that goes along that has to succeed on the field and off the field. So let's jump into it. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a walk-on attending a Power 5 school looking to get on scholarship, not only looking to get on scholarship, but be a main contributor?
I think my biggest thing is your mentality, man. Just have a mentality that you belong. Just coming in as a walk-on, I can speak from my personal story, and I think probably a lot of other guys, you kind of get caught into this hype of, okay, well, I'm not a 3-star or a 2-star, I'm a one, and you get in all these stars and you forget football's played on the field. I don't care who judged you, that guy probably didn't play or whatever this is. So it's really intimidating coming in, right? So I'm coming into Penn State Power 5. Well, wow, this is a place I couldn't even get a scholarship to. Like, man, everybody must be like demigods walking around here, and then we'll touch on it later probably, but right then you put me in a dorm room with the number one kid in the nation, the number one corner in the nation, and I'm in here like, man. But my mindset, once I got in there was like, hey man, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna bust my tail, and if it fails, I'm gonna fail knowing like y'all put everything into it that I could. But then you kind of start to realize like, man, you can play at that level. Like other guys are good, but you can have a spot. It was intimidating though, was the biggest thing I think, just mindset.
No, that's real when you say that. It's like going into it and just like you said, being intimidating because like everybody's giving out scholarships and you're coming in knowing that you weren't one of the guys that got that scholarship. So like jumping into it, you mean coming from Northern Virginia, DMV, talent rich area, like how was the process for you? Because like you said, you knew you didn't get a scholarship offer to go to a place like Penn State. Like what was your recruiting process like?
So mine kind of jumped off late. We were one of those schools. We were a powerhouse football school in Virginia. So we just happened to be good enough to where guys just play offense or defense unless you really excelled, right? So, and I was more of a basketball kid coming. I kind of just played football just because it was like, oh, this is fun, and then going to school. So then it kind of took off. Guys were good, but so my junior year, I only played defense and went to one camp. I really wasn't a big football guy. Like I didn't go to all these camps. I was more so like you would catch me at a basketball camp in a heartbeat.
Right.
So football wasn't highly recruited. And then that junior year came, we won states. I played defense, started that whole year, and I was like, okay, this guy's kind of good. And we had another guy that was like number one in the nation. Everybody came to check out. And so they would look at me and be like, oh, he's kind of good, but I don't know if he's good enough. And then senior year is when it really jumped off in between. So I went to one camp at Maryland and had a really good camp. And I remember it was a guy, Doug Dutch, and I was battling him out there, and he was a big deal. And just kind of was like, all right, well, who's this kid? And kind of put me on the map a little bit. And then senior year, I played offense and defense. So then that's when the stats came, right? Because, it's one thing to be a shutdown corner in a high school, but it's like unless you go to camps, probably they're not really gonna,
Right.
look at that. So it was like when I started putting up offensive numbers, like, all right, well, now the dude has 9 interceptions, but he's got 200 yards in the same game. And so my recruiting took off like my senior year. And by that time, most people know like those big schools, Power Fives, they've pretty much filled out their class, right? They've offered guys a long time ago. So I started getting a lot of, hey, we've got a scholarship for you, but you need to commit now before you visit. And I wasn't comfortable with that. So that's kind of one of those situations at Penn State actually where it happened where I got a scholarship. I was like, all right, well, I want to come out there and visit within 2 weeks or something. And I remember by the time I got there, like, hey, the other kid already committed before you. And so then I ended up just coming back and walking on there and I really liked it. And then one thing too, I forgot is in the States, my senior, there was a kid, Eddie Royal, that was like number one in the state and big deal, had all these offers. And me and him went toe to toe, but he didn't play defense. I played defense. But it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I think I kept getting to that point where like people like, this little kid belongs. Like, I don't know who he is. He doesn't have we don't know a 40 time on him or this or that. But it was just like, just kind of, and that's how my recruiting process kind of got to where it got to. It just jumped off late.
No, so it's just to hear that. So you're just a late bloomer at the end of the day, right? Like your senior year, you start coming onto the scene, and like Power Five schools, like you said, their classes get backed up or like, guys commit. And I'll be honest, like even just coming in, going into as a recruiting coordinator, like you kind of warped my idea of like what the level of a walk on is supposed to be. Because I'm like, well, walk ons that I played with, like these guys weren't, these guys aren't like, I mean, I don't know. Deon's low 4.3, Jordan Norwood, he was, Jordan was like a gray shirt, so I was a little different, but it was still in that same thing where it was like, we talk about, like maybe 2-3 stars or whatever the case may be. Like, well, what is the common thread that makes those guys successful, right? And it was just always using you guys as a measuring stick because there was elite traits there the whole time, right? And like you talk about how you approach the game. So when we were getting serious with the whole recruiting process, right? Like your senior year, like where was your mental with it? It was like, okay, I'm going to college. I'm going to get on scholarship once you figured out you were going to walk on.
It's pretty crazy because it was all brand new, man. It was just a whirlwind kind of like I haven't been through this. My parents hadn't been through kind of big schools coming in. My brother ended up playing right basketball at University in Miami, but he got in academics and then joined the team that way. So he didn't really have a strong recruiting process. So I was the first one to have like, hey, coaches are coming in the living room, sitting down, talking to you, and I'm kind of looking at my parents, they're looking at me, and it's just like, well, I don't know. Well, cool, let's go to this place and check this out. And I mean, it was fun visiting the colleges, but I think because of that, I had a good support system, which was great because my parents, they were always into academics,
Right.
right? So academics, I knew going in, I was like, okay, I want a school that's great academically. I was pretty fortunate in that I kind of knew I wanted to do forensic science. All those CSI shows were new, so I wanted to kind of, okay, I want to try to find something at the school has something like that. So that kind of helped
You knew that
gear.
going in, that was the type of program that you were looking for. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember, I'll never forget because I was in high school and I remember one of the things about picking a major, right? That's like one of the big deals, right? Your senior, junior year in high school. And it was like, well, what TV shows do you watch? And I was like, man, I watch CSI all day. And they were like, well, and kind of go with that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I would love to do like forensics and bullet trajectory and all that stuff. So that kind of helped narrow my focus of like schools that at least kind of were academic that at least offer something like it. And just because I wasn't one of those 4 star, 5 star guys or had a whole bunch of offers, I could kind of that would play into it where it just wasn't just football
Right.
played into it, like academics played into it because I didn't see, I don't know 3, 4 years from
Right, right,
now
right.
what I'll be doing.
That's very interesting. Like with going in through the recruiting process, knowing that you're kind of a walk on, do you think it kind of geared your college selection process more towards a normal student, where like you're kind of looking at majors? Where does this thing line up from the school first and then the football? Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's kind of a unique trait from it,
Yeah.
is that because I wasn't like, okay, hey, here's a pit stop to the NFL. I was just like, okay, I need to get a great education. What's going to look good on your resume? Kind of like you saying, like the normal student would do, right? Like, hey, let me go to a school that looks great when I get, when I graduate. I put this on my resume. He went to this school. She went to this school. That looks great, and that played a large part into that recruiting process as well as okay, and then football on, added on to that. So it's just kind of like it wasn't just football and then like, hey, let me find something to do while I'm there.
Right. That actually like puts things in the right, like the correct perspective. Like when you're going through it, it's like literally having that football piece as the icing on the cake and everything else being built up underneath. And we kind of see how everything went when you kind of use that and make your impact on the field and continue to use your degree and everything that you gain off the field.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the best part for you, like going through the recruiting process? Because I mean, for me, I would think that if you were like talented, you talk about 9 picks, having all the yards, and you're not getting scholarship offers, like I would think that would be kind of like the recruiting process was a little frustrating.
It was definitely frustrating. Just as far
Okay,
as, being always hearing like, yeah, we like you, we think you're good, but they would always have some little but in there, right? And it would just be, once again, kind of like, okay, I've played the number one guy in the state. We went toe to toe. Like you telling me I can't even be the number 30 guy in the state and like get 5 scholarship offers? Like, so it was just frustrated in that point of just like, and that's also another mentality thing because you kind of at that point you always hear what you're not, right? I always heard, well, you're not, a big guy, or, well, you're not fast. And even though I was fast, the point was I didn't go to football camp, so no one had a clocked time on me.
got it.
So they're like, okay, he's smaller. We
Yeah,
don't know quite his time, but like, so I was like one of those guys that it was frustrating to always hear what I wasn't. The best part, honestly, was honestly just being with my family at these different campuses, like places that I never would have thought I'd have been to, and just kind of experiencing that. And I mean, definitely met a lot of, great players and saw a lot of good campuses and stuff, but just that experience to go to those different places, having never really been to a college campus, and then having that, like, hey, this could be your college experience. Because you always hear about, right, so much about, oh, college is going to be the best time, college will be the best time of your life. So I'm like, this is coming up. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm picking this could be one of them. I don't know. And just kind of starting to see that, and even seeing the other recruits that want to visit with me, like, yo, this could be my homeboy for the next 3 4 years, like, kind of
right.
stuff like that.
Oh, that's real cool, man. That's funny that you talked about the speed piece and like not having, not going to camps and people knowing that you're fast. Because I remember like one of my first days on campus, and we all know what guys kind of run, or at least being a DB, you have a gauge of speed of who you're going against, right? And like I
Hmm.
didn't really have a gauge of you or Jordan to an extent, right? It was just like, all right, this is Deon, whatever. And I remember like round lining up, I'm like, I don't know, man. Dude can run, dog. I can run, man. And I'm like, dude's running, dog. And then we ended up timing in the spring. He ran like 4.33. I was like, yeah, I knew it, man. This dude's flying out here.
Yeah, yeah. Now that was one of those pieces, man, where like I said, just I never was a big football camp guy, so no time. So just like I was just one of those guys, like, hey, nobody's really caught him on film, but we don't know a time for.
No, that's real. Because like that's a key piece too. It's like what people don't know. I mean, Penn State got a steal with you going in there. I mean, that might be the steal of the century, to be completely honest with you. So, was what would be like a key takeaway that you would share with anyone to better equip themselves to going through the recruiting process as a recruit or as a walk on?
I
Because I
was
think you have a very interesting perspective going through the process as a walk on.
Yeah, I mean, as a walk-on, honestly, like I would love to, I think I'm blessed. I would love for everyone to have the same story, but the actuality is, and I think, and the guy we play for always talk about, I'm worried about everybody that doesn't make it to the league, and just about how much they built that up in us at Penn State. So I would say for honestly a walk-on guys, like have that mindset, have that determination that you're going to be there and play, but also think about your future outside of that, as far as what do you want to do academically? Is it something that you're really passionate about? Is it some, obviously a lot of people change majors and stuff, but just get in and think about something that you really do as far as kind of thinking about a school like that. And then if you're, opposite guy, don't really have too much experience, but just going through the recruiting process, don't feel rushed. I'm sure you could give a different side of that, but you get in here and, people want obviously their classes filled out quick. And even on the opposite end, I went in where it was just like, hey, we got a scholarship, commit. And I was like, man, I ain't never been to, I remember like Akron was one. I've never been to Akron. I'm not going to commit somewhere I haven't been to before. And, unfortunately, then they would pull the scholarship, or like Cincinnati. I hadn't been to Cincinnati, but, just be patient. Even if you do commit, but just be thorough when you go there, but be patient because they work on their own clock. They trying to feel something out, and you got to do what's best for you at the same time.
And that's a great point, man, because you walked, like you were saying it and you walked it out, right? Like you got scholarship offers where they're like, hey, hurry up and commit. And you were like, I'm not really sure. And you lost those opportunities and you end up walking on to Penn State. And you made the most out of that opportunity of going on scholarship, leading as, in the record books and all that stuff, all those great things. But
Right, right.
you never felt rushed though. You never felt like it's scholarship or bust. It was like, all right, I'm gonna take my time to the point where I'm gonna walk on that Power Five. That's a very powerful example of like taking your time and going through the process, because it's not speaking from a 5-star standpoint. Like you're talking from a person that went through as a walk on and got those late offers and was just like, all right, I need the
Yeah,
best situation for me to thrive. Because once I get here, I have to be able to do what I need to do. I need to be able to get the degree that I want to go through. And I think that's real interesting hearing you going through the process more so like a regular student. And then
yeah,
the
yeah,
football piece
absolutely.
being the add-on. So if we transition into Penn State, like what was that walk-on experience like?
You know what, man? It was great, man. I mean, there were a couple downsides and stuff here and there we'll get into, but I mean, very minimal. But I mean, I think one of the great things is just the people there. First off, I mean, a lot of the teammates. I mean, you were there kind of first time, well, right after my first year, right that summer. But it was just like, that senior class we had, man, was special that year. Those guys, I mean, I don't think we could have been any more blessed to just have the type of guys that we had, the leaders that we had there. So they really showed us the way, still have fun, showed us how to have fun, but like, hey, when it's time to work, it's time to work. So I think that experience that was big as far as helping shape. Like this is what it looks like to be, a top player and at the collegiate level. And then honestly, even being with Jordan, you and Derek that year, and I remember we were just all young and like, hey man, we all right, let's go out here and let's figure it out. We didn't know what we didn't know,
Right, right.
and but I felt like that just meshed really well in that room because we just like we all, like you said, we all had the same mentality. Like we want to play. Like we gonna have to figure it out. Like we not the biggest, we not the strongest, whatever. But it's just like we gonna find a way. And you really couldn't take that from us. And I'm just glad because, I see you work and do something, I see Derek do something, then I want to do it. And Jordan's trying to do it. And then they like, dang, he can do that. And then like, all right, watch this. And that was just alone in that room
That's just the room.
of
That's
going
that
to
quad.
film.
That's just, yeah.
Right. That was just that quad of just like, yo, Jay King did this today, D Will did that. Like Deon had this one play, Jay Wood, and it was just like we just pushed each other. And then I think we gave each other confidence. So that supporting cast right there was huge for me. And I don't even think, I mean, I've never really talked about it much, but you guys, like that meant so much because it gave me confidence, like I said, from the intimidation standpoint. I was like, all right, you know what? Actually, I'm here and we making plays and they doing it. Like we just here having fun. And now I'm not even thinking like, oh my God, I'm at Penn State. I'm like, it's another day to ball. Let's go.
That's real, man. Because like the same way that you fed off of that, I think me and Derek talked about it on the episode where we fed off of it too. Like where it was the sense of like everybody that when we came back to the apartment, like everybody was on that mission of like, oh, we gotta go get it. Like, and there was never really any attitude of like we need to beg pardons or like, excuse me, like let's do this. We were like, nah, we gotta go do it. Like, all right, he did this, you're doing that. I'm playing both sides. Derek's doing
Right.
his thing. Jordan's crossing people up on the field. Like, you taking people uptown, and there was a level of us competing against each other within, but like none of us had that mentality. Like we had to wait. And I think that made
Mm-mm.
all of us feel even more comfortable being in that confident space where it was like, well, I know 3 people that's feeling the same way I'm feeling. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but
Right.
like the cats that I live with, they
Right.
expect the ball. Like, you know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
right. Like you go make a play. I'm like, Jay King, yo, bro, but did you see the play you made? And it's just like you get that confidence because we weren't hating on each other. We were just all level. Or you come back like, yo, did you say Jay Woodrow catch yesterday? Like, you know what I mean? We would just all be on that, and I felt like we just built off of that, man.
no, that's real. And that's real, man. And like just take it down to a little bit of the pieces. I mean, just to talk to some of the guys that may be going through that walk-on experience. Some of the, I guess, darker times or the things that maybe are a little different when you come through as a walk-on, where you're like, oh man, this is serious business. Like being a walk-on means like I'm walking on.
Yeah.
Can you give me like
So
any stories that were like a rude
I'll never
awakening?
forget two things. Nothing on the field really besides like just guys being on the field. I'll start with on the field. On the field, guys just like everybody kind of looked apart. You know what I mean? Like, everybody looked like you 17, you 18. Like I don't know where they make them at like that, but I ain't like you know what I mean? And I mean I still laugh to this day, but me and Jordan will talk about it, like going in there, we couldn't even hit a 45 on the bench press, bro. Like, you know what I mean? But like, who's this guy?
Right.
But just kind of being confident in who you are and knowing that stuff. But then, just everybody looked apart. So like you got that where like, okay, wow, like this looks like I guess what a a 3-star, 4-star, whatever it looks like. That part was big on the field and everybody could move and stuff like that. Off the field, man, the two biggest things I'll never forget is training table is one. Just as far as after every practice, so just like a backstory for people who don't really know that. So training table is basically football players had our own cafeteria so you can make it to study hall on time. We didn't want to wait or we didn't they had it where we didn't have to wait in the regular cafeteria with all the other students because there were always a long line when it's kind of like dinner time on campus, right? So you had, okay, here's training tables, just the players. You check in, sign your name, go get your food, and then you can make it to study hall on time if you need a study hall. And being a walk-on, you don't get access to training tables. So we would all be leaving practice, and nobody goes to practice and like, hey, are you on scholarship? Are you? No one does that. So
Right.
you just go and practice and play, and then you walk in there. And I'm walking with the guys, and I remember. You remember, so like training table, you would veer off to the left, and I used to veer off to the right. And they'd be like, yo, D, where you going? Training table over here. And I'd be like, nah, bro, I ain't got training table, man. Like, nah. I remember the first time. They was like, nah, come on, man, you good. And I went up there, and Kirk, bro, Kirk was like, your name ain't on here. So I literally, I was like, went to the club door, basically. It felt like went to the club and was like, hey, now your name not on the list, bro. So I'll never forget that. And people kind of like a couple times after that and after practicing, been like, you ain't on Scally? Like, you be out there, like, making plays too. Like, you not on scholarship? I'm like, nah. They be like, man, and I'll never forget Tone. Tone used to bring me food. I'd be like, yo, Tone, bring me some food after the joint, man, some free candy and whatnot. So he always used to look out for me. Tony Davis, my roommate at that time too. But
TD.
that was like one of the big things. Yeah, that was one of the big things that I recognized was like, man, that training table, because that was like a moment of I had to say, because like I said, no one asked on the field, but I had to say like, hey, I'm not on scholarship. I can't go there. I got meal points. You got to go there. And then it kind of, it is what it is. But like as a player, you kind of feel embarrassed. You shouldn't, but you do as just a guy, right?
I,
That was
I
one thing.
think I think you're hitting on a real serious point because like when guys think about going through the walk on process, or even sometimes when you go as an undrafted free agent into the NFL and like what it takes to kind of make it and like the hurdles that you have to jump over outside of the field, right? If you have an issue of confidence, if you should be there, if you have that and you don't have a confidence of like being there and you go eat with the guys, we're like, you can't eat here. Like that
Right.
just kind of reinforces that you're not supposed to be. You go back to your room, you're not studying with the guys. The next day, it's like, well, should I be playing like this? There's
Right.
mental fortitude that goes along with that rejection, knowing that I can't eat with the guys that I'm supposed to be on the same team with.
Right.
Because like your whole life
Right.
since you come on the football field, we're all equal. I mean, all
Teammate.
110 of us here, we're on the football team. And that's like a thing
Yeah.
that you sometimes see. I know that was like a wake up call for me when I started realizing that when I got to college, like, wait, walk-ons can't eat here? Like I didn't
Yeah.
really understand it, but obviously now I'm understanding the game and everything. But that is
Yeah, that's a big part because like I said, it makes you really say it. Like, hey, I'm not on scholarship. I can't go over there and stuff like that. So you kind of like you saying if you're not sure if you should be there, that's really a big thing. Like you got to be confident. Like that's all right, I don't eat there. And then even on top of that, right? But hey, you can come and eat on Friday when the recruits are here, which is a deeper subject, right? Because that gets into also now y'all want me to smile and all these recruits' faces with the ice sculptures here. Like, hey, yeah, I'm here, I'm eating good. But yo, Monday through Thursday, nah. But Friday for show, come on in.
that's deep.
And that I mean that's a big thing. That's like, man, if you're not confident in yourself, you're gonna hold a lot of animosity about like, so y'all gonna let me come here and eat Friday, but Monday through Thursday I can't. But Friday the only difference is people coming, so y'all wanna look like everybody's a family here. And this is like, bro, Monday through Thursday, I'm not don't you know what I mean? And
Bro,
not to sound like animosity.
unwavering confidence, because the most confident person can get turned away, and like how do you
Right.
respond to that? Like, so
That
even what you're saying, like that's what I think people don't understand. Like, there's like an unwavering confidence. Like people that make it as an undrafted free agent, people that make it as a walk on. Like there is like this dog mentality and fortitude that you have to have within yourself because there's everything outside that's kind of taking chips at like your
yeah.
self-image, your
There's
identity, if you should be here, because
there's
it's just trying to make it easier. So if anything were to happen, it's like, all right, we can separate from that. Like,
right. And the other thing I remember too is just books. I had to buy my books. So I would have that student experience of having to go and find a book and then having to return a book. And then you probably hear the normal student talk about that. I had that experience for a year. It was like, y'all bought the book for 80, I'm returning it for 30. how that work? As opposed to once you get on scholarship, hey, they gave me a box. I picked up all my books in the box. I returned the box. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, so that's interesting. So when did you feel like you were in the right place? Like all these things are happening. Those are like two examples, but was there a moment that, I mean, before they said like, Deon, we're going to put you on scholarship. Like, did you know, like when you caught your stride, like, man.
I think like that spring ball, man, when y'all were there and they had switched me over to wide out, and I don't know, I feel like you're saying, like we just the way we built off of each other, we were just going out there, and we knew our defense even when we were rough before, right? The year our defense was still good.
Right.
So just like when we were going out there and as freshmen, we're making plays and catching, some deep posts and deep outs, and it's just like, hey, I belong here. And like I said, like building off of you guys and seeing that was like pretty big as far as, man, it's like we can really do this. And then like getting that confidence, building that confidence to where then it became a thing where it was expected. Like, hey, if you going against, AZ, we expect you to win. If you lose, okay, we're gonna critique you, but it's not like, hey, we just expect you to lose.
Right.
Like it was expected, like, yo, you make a play on him, or going against Calvin or something. So I think that was big. And then the other big part, I think it was Central Michigan game where I had like 2 touchdowns. And I was like, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Like I think the first one was Cincinnati. I caught a touchdown, but that was kind of like near the end of the game. But that Central Michigan, I think, was I had caught like two, and I was like, oh yeah, I belong in D1 football here, guys.
When did they officially put you on scholarship?
Man, long story. So that one actually was at the end of my freshman year. So right before you came was actually when what happened was I literally left school, dapped everybody up. Hey man, didn't get my Scully. I'ma holler at y'all. I had plans to go. I actually was gonna probably go to like William and Mary or one of the small schools. I was about to reopen my recruitment.
Okay.
And I remember I literally only got home for maybe 5 days. And Joe had called my parents and I was like, oh, why is he leaving? Like he's supposed to be here. My parents, we not paying for summer school because we had to be there.
Yeah.
My parents like, we're not paying for summer school. We not that, that wasn't what we can afford. They were like, and within a day, they was like, oh no, bring him back. We got a Scully for him.
You found a scholarship.
But I literally left, bro. I packed everything. I hadn't even unpacked, and then we just drove it right back.
Nah, that's
crazy, but that's how it went.
No, I didn't know that story. That's pretty cool. I mean, Joe recognized that. Hey, man, get this guy back up on campus, man.
Yeah, hey, what are you doing?
We done traveled to Alexandria a couple times to get players, dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like come on, man. Yeah.
No, so was there any critical advantage that you noticed while you were at Penn State? Like while you were there, you're just like, man, I got to take full advantage of like this.
You know what? Honestly, I think the talent that I was playing against,
Okay.
man. Like I wanted to take a full advantage, like and it was early, right? Early years where, like I said, the Zemitises, Calvin Lowry's, Amar, you guys, like obviously Mike Robb was there, but just the talent that was around, even though we didn't show it per se on the field.
Right.
But I was just like, man, these guys are talented. Like I can learn from them, and they had really good mentality. So I really honed into learning from those guys, like offense, defense. Because right, I played defense first year. You coming in with a lot of experience, even though without college, but you have been through a lot of camps, a lot of technique. Derek had been to every camp, known the man. Jordan's a coach's son, so he like knew all that technique. And I was really honed into like, let me learn from these guys, because obviously I'm not on scholarship, but I'm not gonna act like I'm too good to not learn from those guys. And I really learned a lot. And I remember my freshman year too, which was big. Chris Harrell was hurt, so he was on scout team. And he had already played before. So Chris had us running around like crazy, like, nah, man, when you in cover two, play it like it's cover three. So I started really thinking the game. They want you on scout team, right? Hey, sit here and do like this. He was like, nah, do this, make it look like this. I'm a flip. And he was like, yo, you get a pick, like pitch it. Like he just had the confidence, right? Like when you play with that confidence, and that just really helped me build of like, yo, I belong here. I'm learning from these guys. And like I felt like that was a big advantage because a lot of guys really knew the game, like as far as like studying it and stuff like that.
I would definitely agree with you. That culture, when I got there in freshman year, just how those guys approach the game, their like football acumen, just the way we prepared, and like you said, just the seriousness and how they approached it. I kind of base like football culture off of that. Like, all right, is this a tough culture? Is this because like that was pretty rough and rugged locker room. I think that 05 season, when you talk about all the way through, whether it's talent, toughness, like confidence all the way through. And I mean, you mentioned a good point too about guys being smart, just being kind of prepared from us playing at that young age, and just what you talked about, like Derek coming through. His dad was a athletic administrator in college. Jordan, his dad, was the DB coach on the team, Coach Norwood. I came, my dad was high school head coach, athletic director at the time, now associate head coach. And like you said, you were coming from the same standpoint. And like, that was kind of the mentality of it. Like when we were in the room, like we were talking football, like we would talk about plays, like we would had the playbook on the video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like different stuff. So it was, that's a very good point, because I drew a lot from that too, from just like the culture and just how people approach their craft. Yeah, I mean, so
it was really special. I think just definitely that year, other years too, but that year because you had the young talent who didn't know too much, and then you had those guys who had been losing for 3 years or so, and they were tired of that, and then they had that dog, and then it was like that influx, and then it just busted out on the field.
that's exactly what it was. Cause like they were fed up. Like I remember telling Cass that about like time, like those seniors like Tomba, Mike Robb, AZ, if the guys listening, man, you could tell like they were walking on eggshells. It was like it was ready to go up at all moments, man. What was the best part you think at Penn State for you?
Man, I think honestly, it was that whirlwind of that. I mean, there's a lot of great moments breaking their records, but I really loved that first year with us, man. And it was the 4 freshmen. Freshmen don't play here. And it was just kind of like, but we didn't really think about that. We didn't really know about that. We didn't care about that. We just, all right, we happen to be playing. And then, we doing the photo shoots in ESPN magazine. And I'm like, this is like, I mean, I'm just a walk-on cat. And now I'm doing magazine photo shoots where we got our own little sign. Now we doing aircraft, plane pictures. And like, I mean, it was that first year just to see of like, you belong. That really solidified, like, hey, you belong, man. Like, and these other guys, they're with you, you're with them, like, yo, let's make that happen. But that was a really special year to just see that all come together, that success we had, and just even the buzz that guys were like, it was just such a big deal that freshmen didn't play. But we didn't let it get to our head. We just happened to be playing.
It was definitely a movie. That freshman year it was a movie, because like you said, there was expectations, and we rung the bell, right? Like there was like, all right, we were kind of big recruits. You guys came in and performed beyond any expectation. I think all of us, to that standpoint. And it was like that turning point from like a bad year to an 11-1 year, and like that being the spark point. That was a special time. People talk about that 05 year, man. It was what a time. What was the worst part, you think?
Oh man.
Not to get too gruesome about anything, but like things that
I remember probably lighthearted, but the worst time, man, crawling it out of that weight room, getting our butts kicked. Because
hey, I talk about people when they're evaluating these schools, man. You better evaluate this weight room. Not that you got to work hard here or there, but you better make sure it's on point for you. Because man, that weight room, you could get sticky in there.
I mean, it's not that I didn't like, but it's like, man, that's tough. Like that was hard. I mean, that built character though too, right? Just even like the little things that we didn't like, oh, I got to be 10 minutes early to be on time, and all of that stuff. It taught you a lot though. So it's not per se a negative thing, but it was something that you had to adjust to if you weren't used to that,
that's
right?
Fair.
So, like learning that and kind of I guess the only other part, we didn't have all of the flashiest stuff, so we kind of wanted to be like that, but we made it work. We did what we had to do, man.
I think that's real, man. Like especially being real about like the weight room's an adjustment. Like it's a true part of like the college football experience. And like you said, it's not like that's a worst part, but it's an adjusting part. And then to the top of that, like the flashiness, but I think we were able to preserve our identity, and within that, and all of us kind of flourish afterwards. But yeah, that was definitely something when we were in college. Like, hey man, hey, this,
right. We won all the Nike stuff. Cause like, yo, we Penn State. We just won 11-1, bro. You telling me I gotta have my white socks 2 inches above my ankle?
No, I think we came in. We were the oddballs with that, or the black sheep, because I had the black tape. Had the egg.
I want to say, remember we did
get off the field.
One of those bowl games we did that we were like, yo, we gonna do it. We going black, and it's the last game of the season. What they gonna say?
Get out there.
But yeah, we used to want to do it. We wanted the visors.
Yeah, we had the visors. Stuff, yeah, we did rock it for a minute. I couldn't do it. It fogged up on me, man. I can't see. Oh man, we talk about our four, like the roommates, man. I talk about we had like that Fab Four. We could have been had an ill ass my bad, but an ill brand when we were in college. But like
Oh
the Four
yeah,
Horsemen when we were in there. What's your thoughts on the NIL situation and regulation in college sports?
man. First off, the regulation. I think they got a large task ahead of them. I mean, I obviously think it's a topic that's been big for a while, but even now, I don't think they really have a great grip on like how do you manage this? How do you standardize this? And honestly, I'm just glad I'm not one of the people trying to make that happen. I think it's great for athletes though, right? Because
Right.
I think obviously, right, they make the schools a lot of money. I mean, I think you just got to balance that. Maybe me being, I'm not even old, but like, you mature some and you just think, okay, us as college kids, like, let's not, I don't want to make it too pro.
Right.
You know what I mean? And maybe just because we've been fortunate to be pro, but it's like they should be able to make money. But the part maybe that I don't like, hopefully it doesn't turn to that. But then you see guys going to certain places, which is going to probably happen for the money,
Gotcha.
for the opportunities,
The
right?
opposite, yeah.
Not just for football, right? And that's kind of pro stuff. Like, oh, you in this market, you can do this and free agency, and so I mean, I think it's good for the students. I think they just have to learn, not the students per se, but the NCAA or some legislation has to learn to kind of how to try to corral this and kind of make it something. But I think it's great for the athletes. They make school a lot of money, and it's going to mature guys a lot because you're going to start getting into contract deals, and you're going to have to, going to have to show up to events and stuff that you're saying you're going to do and stuff like that. Imagine JK with a Mercedes on State College
Hey,
campus,
coach.
man.
I'm trying to tell him all it does is force the business down to a younger age, so it has to make guys, tighten up a little earlier. So I mean, but to your
Right.
point, there's like the operation of it is a move in progress, and like all those things are still true. How would you have handled the NIL situation coming out? Like, what would you have been doing?
Man, I mean, I think, we're in one of those markets where Penn State, right, is everything out there. So I think we would have had the, especially as freshmen when we were like the thing. It was like we'd have had the pick of whatever deals and, money and all of that stuff and liking it. So I mean, I just feel like I would have definitely been doing deals and, autograph signings and all of those things. But I think, one of the genuine things where like just even in that room I continue to talk about that room with me, you, Jordan, and Derek, it was like we were genuinely good guys though. So it's not like I think we would have took the money and did something super silly or something super crazy.
Right.
And we were genuine, like we didn't mind signing autographs. We didn't feel like we were too good.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I think we would have took real good advantage of that, man, and made it work. But I know that coaching staff we had, they would have
They
been
would have been hating.
they would have been they'd have been so mad. They would have, oh my goodness,
Nah,
they wouldn't have been able to handle
nah, that's
that.
real. Like, depending on how it was, but like you're right. Penn State is one of those like 15 to 16, 15 to 20 ecosystems where like you can like really do some damage, like in terms of the
Oh yeah,
support and people coming to the games, and we got hit up a lot
oh
to
yeah.
sign stuff, and hey, here's some send it back to us and all that good stuff. But
Right.
a lot of different opportunities there. But you're right. Like, it would have been, what are
About
you guys doing? Why isn't this here? Like, so that's the time at Penn State, man. We talk about transitioning to the NFL. Like, how was that for you?
You know what? By then, I think I had already been wowed enough. I think I remember one of my bigger moments was junior year after that Tennessee game, and they kind of came to us, and you were a junior at the time, and they were kind of like, "Hey, here's kind of the juniors that are you coming out? Is he coming out?" And I'm like, "Me? Y'all think I can come out?" So that's when it was like, "Oh wow, this is real." Like, so that's kind of what started me on that path, and then obviously stayed. But once I transitioned into that, I think I was already kind of built from an acumen of like studying the game and knowing the game where I wasn't intimidated by anything. So by
Right.
that time, I was just kind of like, all right, well, you get up here and they talk about everybody's fast, everybody this and that. And I just remember kind of that transition was not per se everybody's fast. I think your linemen, your linebackers get faster, but everybody knows where they're going. They don't waste steps, right? One false step is a touchdown. And, at the other level, a
Right.
false step is, oh, that's a 30-yard completion. Now, no, that's over his head gone, or that's a pick six. So you learn
Right.
like the
Right.
precision of the game. You're like, wow, like just looking at guys, I didn't realize they're making all these decisions and not even really breaking down, but like doing it on the fly. So that was like a big transition of just kind of getting that full playbook and understanding like, hey, this is it now. There's no school, there's no net. You study this playbook, that's it. And then, obviously the other part is just being thrown out into the world with, hey, here's a whole bunch of money, go find where to live. buy furniture, do this or that, and hey, handle it, budget it, and like,
Figure it out.
yeah. And so that, I mean, that's a big
Be in the
part.
building at 6:45 for special
Right.
teams.
That's it. And even then, right, you get there and it's like you get, guys will be late. They're not gonna say nothing. You just gonna see it out your check. Right? In college, you're gonna get yelled at out there. They didn't say you be like, oh man, they ain't even see me. Yeah, you about
Yeah.
8K light, 10K light. Yeah.
Oh, that is so true. That is very true, man. That's the one thing you talk about getting to the NFL, just how much you see guys that have been there 4, 5, 6 plus years, how studious, how like what type of students of the game they are, right? Like how studious they are about things and like how they transition into like, oh, this isn't an extracurricular activity for like, this is my job. This is like a business. Because even in college, I would say, you would have people grumble like, oh, we got this meeting, we got this install. And the league is like, well, you better know because like that's my mortgage, that's his mortgage. Like people were playing for different things on the line, and like that transition to how serious things are being taken from just the acumen standpoint. I was always like, okay, like it's on point.
Yeah, I mean,
is there anything you would have did differently? My bad, going to the NFL like during that transition time.
Trying to think. Now, I mean, I think I had a good thing going. I mean, I kind of wish we had like some junior pro days, right? We didn't have any of those to kind of set us on the map, to set us up. So it was kind of just, what game film we had. And, we were infamous for whenever the NFL scouts there, the practice was going to be dumbed down to a T. So they coming out there trying to look at us. And it's like, he running curl routes all game. Like,
Right.
all practice. Like, I don't want to see that.
Hey.
So I mean, and that was just a coaching decision thing. But I wish we would have had kind of more opportunities to like, hey man, showcase your talent, and we're gonna put you in the best position to succeed as well.
Sure.
But outside of that, I mean, everything I think I did, I took it serious. Like I said, just the way I was around you guys, we had a serious game. Me, and it was just like. I went out in the middle of Jersey and nowhere, eating bag lunches, getting, protein, this and that, and just, I mean, I did everything right, blazed the combine. So, I mean, I had a great time doing. I mean, it was a great time doing it. It was just you had to have that mental fortitude to be like, hey, look, it's time to get down to work. This isn't a cute time to be looking all cool. Like, hey, let's get these stances right. Like, because it's literally a 1 day interview, just about right at the combine. 1 day interview for millions of dollars. That no matter what, if you get it back at the pro day, like they're gonna be like, but he didn't do it at the big stage, So there's
true.
always that little asterisk. So it's like you doing so much months of training for 1 day.
That's true, and that's interesting. You went to New Jersey to train?
Yeah, when I was in Paramus, New Jersey.
Okay.
But
so you didn't even do like the hot stuff, go to Arizona.
Man,
you wasn't in the mix in Miami.
Out on the grind.
It's good.
I mean,
Focused.
that's the kind of guy. I mean, everybody's story obviously different, but yeah, I just was like, man, I just want somewhere kind of low key. Like, let's just get to it, and that's what we did, man. It was good, and I think just for that, we went out to like the wideouts. He had us out in North Carolina with Ricky Prohl. He was he taught us, so he had a prolific camp out there, so we would do that.
Ah, that's tight. That's tight. So once you get drafted by Seattle in the 3rd round and all that good stuff, what was your welcome to the NFL moment?
Man, trying to think. Probably it was literally a Chargers preseason game running a slant on Crow Marty.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I'm doing my thing and I'm pushing him outside. Thinking I'm about to push him back. His reach was so long, I'll never forget. I was like, oh my gosh, he got his hand on my neck. So I barely got through. And then because kind of barely getting through, the throw was late. And that gave the safety, right? So like I said, that precision, like no wasted, like that's got to be clean. When you swipe through, the ball either got to be there or you got to swipe through clean. But it can't be you slow, the ball slow. And this is preseason, so these are guys getting going. Man, that safety knocked my block off. Literally, I just remember seeing like the side of the bolt, like a yellow flash. And it was, man, shoulders hit first, feet was up in the air, like destroyed me on a slant. That was like the first moment. And then in like a game, it was, I think Dawkins was with the Broncos by then, but getting hit by B. Dawkins knocked the wind out of me. Literally one of those when you get hit and you just immediately run to the sideline, like you already, like, just come and get me, boss. Just come. I mean, he was chattering saying, I ain't even stick around to hear it. I just, come get me.
So it was the physical welcome to the NFL for you.
Yeah,
I'm always interested to hear it because like sometimes some guys' intro is more mental right? Where
Yeah.
like they're in like intro to something like, oh, I didn't know it was this serious, or like I mean, there's a range of things, right? On the
Yeah.
field, off the field that the NFL comes, but like that's real. You get hit that first time, or seeing like the speed of the game. I'm trying to think of my welcome to NFL moment, but yeah, I remember just like the first couple games, just things moving so fast. Like, all right, like
Just no
just
missteps.
just yeah,
You
like
know, like no misstep. I remember one of the early games too. The Broncos was Champ Bailey was on there, and just his footwork. You know, you as a wideout, right? I like to feel where the corner's at, and it was just like he was just out of I don't know where he's at, but he here, and it's just like his footwork. Like, where is he at? Like he's just clean, he's just smooth. There's no wasted steps. I thought I had him. He just plant go, and it's just stuff like that though, man. That precision.
now, did you get drafted the same year as Russell, or were you the year before?
I was a year before.
You were a year
So
before.
I had
Okay.
Hasselback for a year, and then Russell actually came when we signed Matt Flynn, and Flynn was supposed to be our guy.
And that whole situation played out. Ah, gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha. So what would you tell a college player that's getting ready to make that jump to the NFL?
I would say, you know what, man, everybody's going to be pretty good that's on a roster up there, right? Whether it's a chess piece, right? Some guys are going to be fast, some guys are big, slower. They're going to know where they're going though. Like everybody pretty much knows where they're going. There's only 1% of that 1% who's just a physical Adrian Peterson, Calvin Johnson, and not to take anything away from the game, but where they can just physically dominate even at that level. So you're not going to be able to do that. So you need to know the playbook. You need to learn, right, from a wideout standpoint. You got to know all the checks. Like, hey, if he come too hot, like you need to look now. And the QB is not waiting, and that ball, like I said, is either going to hit you in the helmet or it's going to be a pick six. But it's not going to be, oh, incomplete pass, my bad. Like, and that's right, jobs on the line. Like you said, now this is somebody else, mortgage coach is taking you out. So you just realize that precision of the game, like start thinking about studying that playbook, no concepts. Because even when you're not getting the ball, you got to affect the coverage from a wideout standpoint. Obviously, other defensive players do other things, but it's like you got to know your whole scheme. Don't know just what you do, right? And then be
Absolutely.
valuable as well. So that maybe actually touch on one thing. One thing I wish I was a little bit more valuable was special teams, right?
Mm.
We happened to be at Penn State, and Derek was the punt return guy and kickoff return guy, kind of like that. I think was the opportunity for me because the first time catching punts was in the pros, and that's not
Wow.
really the first time you want to start catching punts. So I was catching punts, but it's like I had no experience.
Yeah.
So, and then even at that level, right, you learn, okay, well, I'm not a one or two receiver. Anybody that's not one or two, and sometimes you're two. Everybody else on special teams, bro. So don't come up here thinking like this Penn State, like, hey man, I'm one of the starters. I don't do. You a gunner. You the edge guy. Like you something. You playing special teams. So get that in your head too. So that's about making yourself valuable, learning more than one position, and be prepared for special teams, man.
I mean, that's like that special teams piece is so critical, man. Even for my transition to the NFL, I think that was a big piece for me. I mean, like I was always a defensive guy. Like I played defense, played offense. I just didn't. If I was on special teams, I might have been a safety on something, right?
Right.
Never just in the action, really in the track meet. And that is a mentality shift when there's guys that kind of make their living off of that in the NFL. And if you're a receiver and you're not used to kind of doing the super physical stuff, or even as a DB, I don't know, man, playing punt return and then flipping over and playing defense, like just everything else that you're doing as a utility guy, that is definitely something that is, I would yell to guys about transitioning in and being ready. I always
Absolutely.
like applaud schools like universities that start their starters on special teams so that they have that look for NFL scouts and just showing that they can do it and getting used to do it because that'll give you 2 to 3 years if you just
Oh my
have
gosh,
some
yeah.
value, right, on special
There are guys,
teams. That's a
there are guys that carved out their whole career, right? There are guys that
oh
I guarantee. So I say it from a wideout standpoint. There are guys who aren't nearly as good as some of the guys they cut at wide receiver. Not even close.
yeah.
But that guy that they cut doesn't play special teams as well as this guy, and this guy that plays special teams is a good enough wide receiver where we can get away. So it's like, yeah, to that point, man, like that's a big part. So maybe that does touch back on one thing I wish I would have done different. I wish I would have been able to get in the special teams play at Penn State somehow.
That's real. Like guys out there listening, playing in college, man, don't be afraid to get onto those special teams and make plays because that does make you valuable, like a movable piece once you make it to that next level. When 53 guys are active, and it's that special teams that gets you on the field and keeps you activated, getting those good checks. We're going to do a quick read, 1 second. Does your son dream of playing college football at the highest level, or maybe they just want to maximize their time playing sports and want to give them every chance to succeed? Don't be left in the dark when it comes to the future during this critical part of your football career, because that's where we come in. The Recruiting and Football Business Masterclass, a comprehensive course that walks you through the entire recruiting process, football ecosystem, so you can help your son navigate the waters and identify the critical factors for making the right decisions about his future. And his future is just as important as yours. We'll show you how to make sure that your hard-earned money isn't wasted on programs that won't bring success. We know that this football ecosystem, at least sports ecosystem, is a critical point, and it's the entry point into the sport business. So making the right decisions and being informed as you're going through, so you can be in the captain seat and make the most out of this opportunity and critical point in your career. And so we'll just jump back into that. The link will be in the bio underneath, and you guys can check that out. We're jumping back into this. So yeah, Deon, back into it. So we're just going to the transition part. We're just talking about, transition from the game. Had an injury. How was the transition for you?
The transition out was actually pretty smooth. Honestly, I was really blessed to have some guys in my corner as far as the agents that I had. So when I was in the league and I still had that mentality, luckily, of, that same mentality of going to Penn State, I thought about my major and what I'm gonna do after this. And so going into the NFL, I never really planned that at college. So I was like, all right, well, I'd already started within my first 2 years of, hey, let me, figure out an internship or something. And they helped set me up. Obviously, you get a lot of contacts at that level. So I started doing like internships as a NFL guy in the off season, which was kind of funny. It was crazy, right? Go on vacation and then come back and like do an internship. And I mean, you remember, which is funny, right? Crazy, because Justin, I was out in Pittsburgh. I was out in Pittsburgh doing some forensic stuff, and it helped set that where I already had some experience, right? It didn't come into play until 2 or 3 years later, but I already had experience where I could say like, hey, 2 years, here's an internship that I did, here's an internship that I did. So it wasn't brand new to me. So when I transitioned out, I already had some experience in the field. And then what you already know, man, a lot of just what sports taught us, I was already prepared as far as, you get the questions like, hey, how well do you work in a team? Well, let me tell you about a team of 110, 112 people, everybody personality different.
Right.
I can work well. Hey, do you work well under pressure? I think so. You know what I mean? So like things like that, all the things that you do as an athlete, accountability, you know, um, being prompt and all those things like that just transitioned over into, especially when you're getting into a new career, was just like, okay, we can teach you the specifics of what it is, but we want you to have the mold of a guy. Are you quick to learn? Can you learn? Do you have the willingness to learn? Can you talk to people? Are you personable? Things like that. And it's like all of those things were taught to us in sports. And I think a lot of times guys miss out on that, because we just think, oh, I played sports. But it's like, if you really peel back the layers and look at it, like you manage time because you had to do, whether it was study hall and football and then a meal and then get home and take care of your body. But you manage time. And
Processing.
I mean, there's so many things. Yeah, so many
Like,
things. Playbook. Oh my
man, in
goodness,
the middle
yes.
of the game, like you said, be able to read somebody coming hot and make a quick decision because everything changes and there's, chain reactions to
Yeah,
everything that's happening. Like,
and then for you, probably, how many times have you thought probably game plan in middle of the third quarter? They say, "Hey, look, Justin, we've been doing this. We about to start doing this," and you got to do that on that chalkboard right before the iPad, but
boom,
on the
boom,
chalkboard,
boom.
hey, we going to do this
You're
now.
practicing one
And it's
thing
like,
all week, and then all of a sudden, one play changes. The guard lifts his left finger up. We're going to change the whole coverage, and we got to run what we did week two. We ran against them, and you got to have that recall. And
right,
go,
right,
yeah, that's
right,
real. That's a
and all those things transition, man.
No, that's 100% right. And you talk about like when you came to Pittsburgh to do an internship, like that was kind of one of, if I'm just gonna be honest, that was one of the first times because I was like towards the end of my career knowing it, and I was in Pittsburgh, and I saw you doing your internship in the summer, and I'm like, man, I need to tighten up. My man's doing internships in the off season. I'm still in it, but like you are too, and I'm just like, okay, wait, what? Hold up. We gotta get focused. I need to
Yeah.
get ready to get this transition stuff right because I saw you like making those steps while you were still playing, and it was a little different. And when you said your agents helped you out, you said they pretty much put you in contact, kind of in the right areas of what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so they had the contacts with certain like police agencies and things like that. So
That's big.
they through those yeah, through those contacts, and at that level, man, you get access to a lot of
Sure.
people.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't give
So
them up to their players though. So I think that's kudos to you. I mean, I've dealt with agents on many different fronts, and like I don't know if they're opening up their Rolodex for all their players, right? Like you probably showed that
yeah,
I'm not going to mess up this guy's
yeah,
relationship. Like you know what I mean?
and
That's a
I, and I,
piece of it.
yeah,
No, but that's
yeah, and I think you got to have some willingness to want to do it too,
yeah.
right? I stepped out and I wanted to do it, and it was Jim Ivler, who's still an agent, and he's still looking out for guys now. He does a lot at Penn State, but it's just like, just having that want to and saying, like I said, I had that background. I always like, all right, well, I'd love to play forever, but let me just, and I actually enjoyed it. So I was like, I actually enjoyed this in all season. So let me do a little bit of it. I didn't have to give 2 months to it or anything like that. It was just like, hey, just show some resolve that you did this for 2 or 3 weeks, and then that went a long way. When I was interviewing in the beginning, people were like, so you were in the NFL, but then you're doing an internship. Like that just tells me, without you saying anything, your character and who you are.
Kudos to that. Kudos to your agent, and kudos to for him like even setting you up because I remember like that. It did help me get on the track of like, all right, what do I need to do? I know I want to work in football. I know I want to do this, but like get more poignant on it, right? Because like I saw you, you came to Pittsburgh, you were staying with me in the
Yep.
Berg. And it's like, all right, I'm going to go work with this place. My man set up for the intern. I'm like, oh, I mean, I know what I want to do, but like I'm not making these contacts right now. Like while you were like making those contacts, and again, roommates in college, and was like, all right, we all kind of knew looking around, like what's everybody doing? It was like that was like my reminder, like 6 years later, like, all right, roommates doing this, like
hmm
let's get this transition thing going. What were some of your first transition jobs, and how did you get those
So
roles?
one of my first ones. So when I was actually out, I worked at a company, Fiserv. So I just applied for an internship. That's another kind of mindset thing too, man, right? You come from making all this money, being, hey, we not waiting in line. All of that stuff to just like,
Going through the
yeah,
kitchen.
yeah, facts. So now it's like I'm applying for an internship. So of course the first thing people want to ask me when all on your resume is NFL, like, well, what happened? Now I'm sure every player that's ever played, everybody asks like what happened as if every player has just decided, you know what, I could play 10 more years, but I'm gonna stop. It's like, bro, it's like people always ask, well, what happened? What happened? And you're just like, oh, it ended, it, da da da, like I'm transitioning. So I applied for an internship, and I think that just showed them too. They were just like, wow, well, I would have just expected you to try to be doing something. Like, nah, this is what I want to do. Like, if this is the level I got to start at, all right, because, IT is not something you just kind of pick up somewhere else. You got to literally kind of know networking and get into that.
And
So,
build the blocks like
yep,
all the way
literally.
up.
So, right, you got to,
And that's big that we talk about that from transition and like showing that level of humility and like knowing
that,
that there's a gap and just using the stuff that you know to kind of help accelerate filling in the gaps that the things that you don't know. But it takes a level of humility and you have enough stuff that you brought to the table that it should, once you
right.
take a little bit of that process, expedites and accelerates, your growth and your career development. And I mean,
Yeah.
listening to your story, I mean, I knew some of the stuff from like even as roommates being far away and as knew you were always on point, but like hearing the tactical steps, I think is very important for guys listening, like how important it is just to even show or how it looks for the full pixels of like someone being in the NFL and in the offseason, they're still doing their thing and they're taking 2 months to get some type of didactic knowledge or experience in the field that they want to do.
Yeah.
Being open to taking an internship. And it's like to learn the base, I mean, the building
Right.
blocks
I
of what I'm
mean,
trying to do as a
I had
career.
to start at the bottom. So yeah, that was when I was a Windows admin, right? So just like your normal Windows computer, I was working on servers that were Windows. So I would break fix those for companies, and then I went to a security role in that where we were on the firewalls and implementing firewall rules, and then now where I've transitioned to engineer and network security. So I'm doing project based work now, where if you tell me, and I'm at Cox Communications, so it's like if you tell me, hey, we want to stand up these new servers for this. I'm, getting you IPs, putting in firewall rules, setting up your routing and switching and doing all of that stuff.
Man, I mean, that's amazing. What attributes like or traits like from your playing days did you feel like you leaned on the most on your transition in the cybersecurity field?
One of the first ones actually that was pretty evident was, and it still comes through to this day, is not being afraid. Man, I'm not afraid of not knowing. You know what I mean? I feel like you've probably
Yeah.
worked with people where it's just like they're so afraid to not know, or they're so afraid if a VP or see somebody gets on a call. I'm like, all right, you know, for us, like we done been around who's of who. So like who okay, so I'm gonna still talk the same way. I'm gonna be calm, but I'm not gonna lose my train of thought or like, oh, I didn't want to say anything because so and so I don't want to send this email to them. Why not? If you need to send an email to them, you need to send an email to them. So not being afraid was a big thing. And then especially being in a break fix environment where you get on a call because something's broke. So you're not getting off until it's fixed. And then people, right? People were like on the call and like trying to, you know, and it's just like you got to be able to like, all right, be calm in the storm. And that from football and sports in general, just being calm in like all those situations we've been in 3rd and 2 in practice to 3rd and 2 in a game and running actual plays and stuff. It's like I've been in this situation. Okay, look, the stuff is broke. I understand. People can't, you know, with money, people can't trade right now. They need it back. Let's look and let's figure this out. And like, but you know, people get so and this is like football, we've been in those situations. So I leaned on that heavy of just like people are like, oh my gosh, you're so calm. And they thought I knew way more than I knew, but it was just because I was calm.
Did you know that that was like a special, like, did you recognize that as a special gift? Because I would say the same thing for me. Like, that's when when I got into corporate America and started working and I just started seeing certain things rattle people. And I was just like, I mean, that shouldn't rattle you. And then I was just like, and at one point I used to get frustrated because like people would move a certain type of way so that they wouldn't get rattled, right? So then it's now you're playing the politics game. Then I was like, I'm not doing this. And I felt real comfortable with not conflict, but like uncomfortable spaces that kind of come up when you're trying to get to a real apex point in
Yeah,
any type of situation.
right.
And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this is our superpower. This is like where we can like kind of move like and have a conversation like you said where like the hands don't shake like on The Godfather. Like,
oh yeah. I mean,
hey, we're kind of built for like a little bit of
yeah,
volatility.
we're built for that. And I think like you said, I didn't think about that until those situations started happening. Even recently, I just did a video that's posted on our website, right, for Cox or anybody coming in, and we had to do like an hour-long recording, me and one other teammate, and it's in front of like 400, 500 people. And they were just like, oh my gosh, like and like I remember the guy I was practicing with was just so nervous, like just really nervous and kind of like, you know, messing up his words. And I'm like, and I mean, he's super smart. But it's just the
Sure.
fact that it's right, it's gonna be
I'm
this
sure.
many people. And I'm like, you know, we good. And then, you know, I rattle the thing off. And it really helped springboard me now, even in this role where it's just like people look at me like, oh wow, you need to be in leadership. The way you're calm, the way you carry yourself. Like it was 400 people. You know, you have a sense of humor still. You're joking along with telling us the
Yeah.
story. You're not just up there like you know what I mean? So it was just like I really felt like, oh wow, like you saying, like I really lean on that now as far as like, yeah, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable is what I call it, right?
Right.
I'm
Right. It's
comfortable
is
there.
that it's 100% that being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and it's also like actually having confidence in what you're doing once you make that transition, right? Where it's like, all right, now I know my technicals of cybersecurity or forensics so that I'm doing, and it's like, all right, now it's just a matter of managing nerves, and you start seeing like the different pixels of when we talk about a candidate or like a player, right? Like we know how fast. Like you play a DB, like he might be fast, he might be 6'2", da da da, but you might see like, oh, he kind of scared, or like he's not as confident as you
Oh yeah,
might see, like from a football player standpoint, but like that same type of thing in the workforce, whether it's corporate America, you know, in the corporate suites and different things of that nature. It's like, yeah, you can be very technical, but a conversation or interpersonal thing, like they can't get their words out, or you can't do a presentation because they're nervous about someone saying something, or bad with conflict. You know what I mean? Like
mm-hmm.
spat, whatever the different things may be. But like you start to see those aspects and like noticing, like, all right, you coming from elite sports. There's some things that if you get the technicals right, kind of create this super dynamic leadership professional that you can set yourself apart. And like
Absolutely.
but you're somebody that as from the interview that you're listening has built those blocks from the recruiting process, like how you were going through the recruiting process, what you were doing at Penn State, how you approached it. You talk about just being built all the way up to like, you know, now you're getting into now when you're at, you know, network security engineer at Cox Communications. And it's like what you're saying that the attributes that pushed you was like that level of lack of fear and knowing who you were and like all those, that thread that kind of went through your whole career. So with all that being said, for listeners that may not know, can you give a little description of kind of what you do as a network security engineer?
So yeah, so network security engineer now, especially right now, we're busy as far as we're a cable provider. So kind of like you know, you think about your other people have Comcast, Cox is big in other areas, so we're a cable
Right.
provider like that. I'm standing up, and like I said, right now busy because a lot of people are home streaming. So right, they need more capacity, and we have hotels as clients and things like that as well. So actually, it's pretty cool. We won the bid, and we did Las Vegas. We did their stadium. So
Oh,
I helped set up that Wi-Fi there, which was pretty cool.
oh, so
Didn't
you
get to
did the
go out
infrastructure
there.
for the so you did the
Yeah.
infrastructure for the Wi-Fi over at the Las Vegas. Ah,
Yeah, did
okay,
like some of
okay,
the routing and set up some of that stuff. So that was pretty cool. But so just like setting up those things. So like in a day to day, I might, all right, well, I need to get on a router or a switch, and I'm gonna, get your routing going, make sure you got a firewall rule, or I need to might consult my application that says, hey, you're gonna need a firewall rule to go here, or you're not allowed to go in that zone. But so I'll just enable that connectivity project wise for different applications. So just think of something as simple as, hey, we want to be able to click and watch a movie from my phone. I'm helping set up that connectivity if you have Cox, as far as, all right, well,
gotcha.
they're going to go here, they're going to pull from this server, and that, like I'm setting up that connectivity for the common person, what they think of just like, hey, I got my tablet and I hit this movie and I can watch from anywhere.
Got it, got it. Oh, that makes perfect sense. So we're looking to give blueprints and amplify your voice at the same time. So what are some common personality traits that you like that you think should explore a career in cybersecurity, like for athletes coming up?
I mean, I think someone that's really driven, really focused. I think it's really about you got to be curious too about it. You kind of like some type of connectivities or some type of computers. If you kind of like that, I mean, I think everything in this world right now, it's almost you can't escape a tablet, a computer, a laptop. Everything's getting so mobile. So if you're like really into that mobile or and like how are these things working? How am I getting there? I think
Hmm.
that's pretty cool because everything is going towards that. I mean, you see now where you don't even need your credit card on you, right? You just load it into your phone and it's like, hey, I can play it right here and pay, tap it on the phone. So just guys, like if
Exactly.
you're built into that, I think that's a great start. And then everything else that we kind of talked about as far as um, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and being, a leader and things like that, you'll just break into management in that field, and then you'll be the guy making those decisions as far as kind of making those uncomfortable decisions that other people might be afraid, but like, hey, you know what? I'm not afraid to be here and say this.
Right. I think that's huge, right? Because like those critical pieces that you're talking about that even separate yourself are those leadership and management traits that you can't always just put on a resume, and it's kind of hard to fill in the pixels with some of the work that I do. We help find C level executives for Fortune 500 companies and different things like that. That's kind of the
Mm,
thing that comes up is where yeah you might have all this like history of you know doing stuff for like a nice resume, but like what are the actual pixels that you're filling in from a leadership standpoint or the actual gap that you're filling within the company? Because a lot of times those are change makers, right? When you're talking about leadership, can they deal with conflict without getting all crazy, deal with different things without having a fear-based mentality going into the decision-making process and kind of galvanizing the team? And like you saw, like from a head coach, different head coaches that you play for, like when they got up on the podium, like, man, I don't believe anything he's saying. Versus like some of the best leaders that you saw, it was like, all right, that's what it
yeah,
is. And a lot of times guys are around some pretty good leaders in sports and kind of have an understanding of what accountability that comes with that and just that gap though, where it's that technical piece that you're saying,
mm,
that internships and getting in there. So I think that's trying to just build those criteria so guys can create
yeah,
super executives when they leave the sport, or if they want to do their own thing
right.
and they can be their own super executive, whatever those cases are, but stacking up those integral attributes that we've kind of built up along the way. So, I mean, I love kind of everything that you were saying from that standpoint. What was the most difficult aspect of transitioning for you? Because it seemed like you were on point the whole way. Was there any?
I mean, I think it's just that mentally, I think honestly was the toughest thing, right? Because you've been doing it for so long at that point, right? You've been playing ball, you've kind of been the who's of who, and then now it's like, and I tell people it's almost like monopoly money up there, right? Paychecks are just like people don't, they're not used to that, and you're young in your 20s and stuff, and then like, okay, you go from all of that to, all right, well, here's now, so like for me, right, in my personal journey, here's 15 an hour on an internship. And it's like, man. And then so right mentally you have to take on that blow after probably just realizing that okay, I'm really done with football, which is in itself a blow.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, then you have everybody that wants to talk to you about, which is understandable, right? I would want to talk to somebody about if I met a baseball player or something. But then everybody wants to talk to you and remind you about it and wants to know, like I said, why, what happened, this and that. And a cool aspect of it is that you can share that story, you can share that journey. But it's also tough mentally because it's just also like, yes, I'm not there anymore. And like, I mean, there's a certain bravado, right? When you're, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a player. Like, I don't get dressed up. Our dress code to go in the locker room is shorts and tee every day. And
Right,
then
right.
outside of that, like, if I want to get fly on the plane, I can do it how I want. But like, not just like an office and stuff like that, you know. So it's different. It's a mental thing, I think, was the biggest transition and hurdle of just kind of like, hey, you're really done with it. When do you? I remember too, a big point was when do I stop training? Because you know, oh, you're always one phone call away. When do
Right.
I stop training and say, okay, I'm really giving it up because I need to be able to go into an office and get this work done and kind of build my resume that way and say, you know what, if so and so calls tomorrow, I'm sorry, I'm not in shape, bro. I'm good. I'm done. You know, that's a big point when you really make that decision like, all right, no more workouts.
You really have to make that decision. We talk about guys being in that purgatory for because that 2 years because it costs money to
Whew.
train, it costs money to eat, and you're not really focused on building up your resume, taking an internship. Like you're still in a player's mentality where it's like I'm
Mhm.
working out, I'm focusing on this, I'm mentally ready for when they call the dogs, I gotta go ready to bite. Like it's a whole different
Yeah.
mentality. And that's kind of where you see guys have that space from like the time when they play before they get into a job. And then it's like, I can't take that internship for $15 an hour. That's too much of a hit. Like I've been doing this for 2 years, but like, and so that's I think a great point where guys understanding where you're at and having that awareness of where you are in your career. So you can use that time to accelerate into that next career, right? Where like you say
Right.
your doors were being open, where your agents were helping you make those connections when it's like, you had an injury. I'm sure after that you started doing your different internships as well, right? Like, and
Hmm.
that's all a part of this process, even when you're making that crucial transition.
Yeah, it's tough.
So
I mean, that is a very hard thing, man. For anybody they know that's went through it, but for the younger guys coming, man, it's gonna be tough. There's no easy way to do it, and everybody's not the same, but it's tough. It's a tough decision when you actually make that decision, but you just have to commit to it.
true story. You may have touched on this a little bit for players that are looking to get into the tech cybersecurity industry. What are some steps they can take to accelerate that process while they're in the game, outside of maybe an internship or things of that nature?
I think the NFL has right a lot of good resources. So they have resources as far as even like paying for certain educational things and
What
whether
if
it's
a
your
guy doesn't
schooling
make
or
it to the
whatnot.
NFL?
Oh, so okay. For a guy that if he doesn't. So even so like in college. So I'll just say for those guys, like I would say in the technical world,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of certifications, right? Certifications
Okay.
are kind of the key to get you out. So if you don't have the schooling as far as like if you didn't go to school for networking, you can still go and pick up a certification that'll show, okay, you have a building block of knowing networking or knowing firewalls or Windows, Linux, whatever it is. So those there's a lot of certifications out there. I would say look into those
Okay.
and grab one of those and that'll get you like some experience and if you want to go a step further, get into a lab. And when I say a lab, just like a virtual lab. So you can get on your laptop and go and get like a virtual machine or something like that, which is kind of when it spins up like a Windows or a Mac inside of your laptop. Basically, you
Yeah.
can just play around and do commands in there, but get a lab so then you can actually get hands-on experience. You'll get part of that in the certification, but if you want to take it a step further, get one on your own. They don't cost too much. It is an investment in yourself,
Sure.
right? Maybe like 70, $80 a month or something like that, maybe, but it's about hey, if you're serious about it, I think those are great steps to at least get your building blocks to where you'll start getting recognized and you'll start getting hits for if I'm applying to be in the networking space. People will respond to you and say, oh, hey, I see you got this certification, or hey, I see you've done this. Tell me more about it. And then you can lean into, hey, I've got a lab actually on my laptop now where I'm running Windows 10 or I'm running Linux, Ubuntu, or
Right.
whatever.
That's critical right there, man. My man Deon giving out the codes and the games. Like if you want to get into that cybersecurity world, like you said, start off with those certifications and start building those things up. Those building blocks, man. You've accomplished so much through your career. What's the what's the end goal? What's the career end goal?
Sea level, man. I want to be sea level somewhere. I want to make those decisions. As far as kind of to me, I'm in the kind of cybersecurity, network security space. So I want to make a decision on a company's security posture. Like, hey, how are we gonna lock down our, our network assets? Who are going to be our clients? Like, what are our hardware vendors? Who are we going to pick? Different Palo Alto, Cisco, Juniper. Like, what are we going to have in our environment? And I'm getting exposed to some of that now, where I'll get on calls when we're, taking bids from different companies and like, hey, let's test this out. How does this work in our environment? But I want to be that guy to say like, hey, no, we're going to be this type of company. We're going to, have this security stance. We're going to, PCI, this or that. But whatever it is, I want to be a guy to make those decisions from up top and kind of really drive and lead our security focus for our company.
That's amazing. And it looks like you are on the way, man. Not looks like, I mean, definitely on that rocket path towards that, man. So just thank you for jumping on to the Blue Chip Academy Blueprint to Success interview series, man. Just a quick recap of what Deon said, man, from walk-on to the record books, man. Just understanding when you're going through this football ecosystem and you're going through the recruiting process, man, make sure you take your time, understand where your fit is, what you're going to school for, and understand that football is icing on a cake if you take care of everything that you need to do, and just understanding that you have to go with some self-belief. Talking about going from a walk-on to the record books, like there's a lot of different adversities that come through being low on a totem pole and kind of rising up, but like you taking care of yourself, taking care of what you need to bring to the table, and going out there and making plays and just being ready along the way and stacking up the stuff, whether it's getting your degree like Deon talked about and understanding what he wanted to do and how he evaluated the schools into the transition from the NFL and getting internships and just creating a dynamic professional before he was even in the realm of the job force or the workforce in general as a cybersecurity professional, and just kind of building up those skills and like being able to accelerate and put himself in the captain's seat to take over. So again, you guys subscribe to the channel and download the checklist, the recruiting checklist whenever you guys get a chance so you can make informed decisions. And again, Deon, thank you for jumping on to the podcast, man. It was a pleasure.
Always, man. Appreciate you being here, man, and love what you're doing. Like I said, I'm watching, and I'm definitely going to get more involved in it. And I love what you're doing, man. I already knew you'd do great things. So,
hey, man, I appreciate it, man. You gave the blueprint, man, for the like seamless transition. Like, do everything you need to do, play at a high level, get your degree, make that transition, move on up in the corporate ranks, man, and keep doing your thing. So, I appreciate you coming on and share your story. Like you said, man, you talk about anomalies all the time, but like here's where you talk about someone that goes in as a walk-on and leaves out in the record book. So much kudos, dog.
All right, man.
Awesome,
Take care.
Man. Have a great one.